Hi everybody, coming at you from the front porch. Seems like I tape a lot from here. It's pretty comfortable, nice and shady. Chloe, do you like it right here? Hi. Ooh, she just ate lunch. Put some breath on you, girl. Go get daddy. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, I am going to read chapter 10 of The Secret Lake. Here we go. Wonder what they're going to be up to today. Let me fix this. Okay. Chapter 10, About Turn. Tom and Stella emerged squinting out of the little hole deep inside the bushes. Stella looked at her watch. It was almost 4 o'clock, 6 hours after they had gone down. Look, Tom, our lunch boxes. She tried to sound cheerful as she peered out towards the log. At least Mom and Dad can't have been out. They picked up the lunch boxes and hurried out into the lawn where the sound of their mother's piano playing danced on the afternoon breeze. A lump rose in Stella's throat. How abruptly their dream had turned into a nightmare. And now, as she looked all around the garden, she could only imagine how it might have been with Emma there. Tom stared at the grass in despair. Each step took him further away from the possibility of helping Jack. How could they do this? How could they abandon Jack after he'd been so kind to them? As their garden gate came into view, his heart skipped a beat. He stopped dead. But Stella, what about Jack's father? He might die if Jack doesn't go back. We've got to go back and help him. Tears of frustration clouded Stella's eyes. Are you mad, Tom? Do you know how lucky we were to get away just then? They'll be searching that garden high and low for us right now. Besides, if the tunnel disappears again, then what? What about us? What about Mom and Dad? As she turned and walked towards their gate, her heart sank at the hopelessness of it all. Tom didn't move. All he could hear were Jack's cries echoing inside his head. Then, as if from nowhere, a passion took hold of him and swelled through his body, urging him to turn around and go back. Stella, lost in a world of her own, was almost at their back door. Tom cupped his hands each side of his mouth and called to his sister, Jack risked his life for us, Stell, and I'm not going to leave him there to die. He turned and started running towards the island, overcome with a sense of elation. It's now or never, he shouted to the treetops. It's now or never. Suddenly, he didn't care whether Stella was coming or that other people might hear him. Nor, for that matter, did he care that Charlie Green was giving him one of his strange looks from a distant flower bed. He must do this. He must do this for Jack and for Jack's father, Jacob. Stella reached for the kitchen door handle. There it is, she breathed, spying her friendship bracelet. She swallowed hard as she slipped it off the door handle and onto her wrist. What a perfect present it would have made for Emma. Something she could have traveled back and forth through time with. She knew that Hannah would approve once she'd explained everything. The bracelet would join all three of them across time and distance. Something made her heart start. She spun around. Tom had been yelling at her, but she had been so absorbed in her thoughts that she hadn't been listening. It's now or never, came an echo to the trees. Now or never. To her horror, she just caught sight of the back of Tom disappearing onto the island. It was difficult to see inside the rhododendron bush without Stella's torch, and Tom had to scrabble about for several seconds, feeling for the hole. For a terrible moment, he thought it had gone. But then, as his hand slipped over the edge, he breathed a deep sigh of relief. He placed his foot down onto one of the ladder rungs and looked out towards the mound. It's still here, Stell. It's not too late, he shouted. He took a deep breath, promised himself he wouldn't be scared by the dark, then slowly started climbing down. Inside the tunnel, Tom could see nothing. He gripped tightly onto each rung, counting each step as he went and watching the dim pool of light disappear above him. He was surprised how quickly he could go. 16, 17, 18. He swung his foot below and found the first nodule. And now, as he took one last look up towards home, he longed for his sister's company. Stella raced towards the island, her heart pounding. What if the tunnel disappeared with Tom inside it? What if he got trapped in the past forever? And whose fault was it, after all, that Jack was stuck in the woods? If she hadn't lingered in the garden, none of this would have happened. She dived inside the rhododendron bush and flicked on her torch. Tears blurred her vision as she scrambled across the undergrowth. Tom might be stupid sometimes and extremely annoying, but how incredibly brave he was. At first, she couldn't remember where the hole was, and as she thumped with her torch on the ground all around her, her cheeks began to burn in terror. Then, just as the first tear broke free and rolled down, her left knee slipped over a ledge and disappeared beneath her. Slowly and carefully, Tom located the first tree nodule, then the next, and the next, his sweating body clinging tightly against the tree trunk as he dangled one foot down and rested it, then released his grip on the nodule above him. After a few moments, he began to make out shadows. Soon he could see the branches of the tree below him through the faint glimmer of dawn. He jumped the final meters, as before, and landed awkwardly on the soft ground below. Then, as he scrambled up and stared out across the lake, his heart sank. He would never make it over on his own. An eerie yellow light suddenly bounced through the trees and onto the lawn. "Tom, I'm here," called Stella in a whisper. And as Tom looked up to see the outline of his emerging big sister, his mouth curled into a crescent-shaped grin. "So, you thought you'd row over on your own, did you?" said Stella, smiling. As the oars moved heavily through the water, a gentle lapping sound broke the stillness of the night air. "I could have done it," said Tom, frowning. Stella burst out laughing. Tom frowned for about 2 more seconds and slowly started to giggle. As they neared the far bank, voices echoed in the distance. "They're still looking for us," whispered Stella, her heart starting to race again. They clambered out of the boat and walked a short way into the wood. "Okay," she said, her voice trembling. "We're just going to have to wait here till everything's died down." "Then what?" said Tom anxiously. His hand was sweating as he grasped onto his treasure rag in his pocket. Stella breathed in deeply and shrugged her shoulders. Who knows? At that moment, Tom felt something cold and metallic between his fingers. It must have been trapped in the folds of his treasure rag. "Stella!" he gasped, pulling the key from his pocket. "It's the Gladstone's key. I never gave Jack the key back." The garden had been quiet for a good half an hour. Finally, the children got up and crossed the line of the trees that looked towards the houses. The moon had faded, leaving the lawn dull and lifeless. The trees and bushes now stood wrapped in the gray cloak of dawn, and as the children peered across, they could see that the house was in darkness, apart from the faintest glimmer of light from a small window high up. Slowly, they crept across the lawn and into the patio garden. "I bet that's Emma's window up there," whispered Stella. "Maybe she's waiting for us. Maybe it's a sign," whispered Tom. "I hope she hasn't fallen asleep," murmured Stella, twirling the bracelet on her wrist. The kitchen was in darkness as they peered on tiptoe through the window. Suddenly, the silence and the emptiness were too much for Tom. "It's too late, Stell," he whispered desperately. "He's gone. They've taken Jack to the prison." "Oh, no, they haven't," said an excited voice behind them. "They've tied him up and locked him in the cellar." Tom and Stella swung round in terror to find a young girl standing triumphantly behind them with her hands on her hips and her feet wide apart. She was wearing a long dark coat over her ankle-length boots. "Hello," she said, her eyes doubling in size. "I'm Lucy Cuthbertson. Who on earth are you?" Oh snap! What's gonna happen? The real Lucy is there. Well, I guess we'll find out next time as I read the next chapter of The Secret Lake. See you later.